Hi, everybody. This is Nick Morrell with Audio Video Export. It's a pleasure to introduce you today or to greet you today as we review an important topic that's going to become more and more relevant as we continue through the audio video industry, and that's bulk fiber optic cables as it relates to Cleerline Technology Group. We're really grateful with all of the different partners it is that we have across the catalog, across our entire catalog. And you'll notice that with a few exceptions, there's very little overlap. Cleerline is one of those examples where there is no overlap because we believe so much in the product. It's such good quality and it does the job. It's reliable. And you know, when you're installing it, you don't have to worry about having to go back. It's easy to be able to terminate. It's easy to be able to pull. It is stronger. It is safer. It's really great. And you're going to see why today. And so for those of you who are here live in the webinar, there is a handouts section. So feel free to please download that handout. It is available to you for whatever you need. If you're watching this as a recording, please email me, nick@av-export.com, in order to be able to get a copy of those handouts. And thank you again for attending. With us today, we've got Rosie.
Hello, everyone.
I think you may have lost me there for a second. I think with us today, we've got Rosie with Cleerline. She's our salesperson extraordinaire, and we're grateful to have her with us today. She has an engineering background, so she's not talking for the sake of talking. She's got the knowledge in order to be able to back it up, and that's so awesome when we're able to work with partners who have a deep and profound knowledge base to be able to leverage. And so thank you again, Rosie, for being with us today and for sharing and your time, and thanks for all of the attendees. She's all yours.
Thank you, Nick. All right, so hello, everyone. How he mentioned, I actually do a technical sales for Cleerline. And we just, all appreciate you guys taking the time, to spend with us. And it is intended to be an informative summary and to the point. So let's talk about some of the benefits of using fiber. All right, so we're going to be talking about some of the basics of fiber, some of the different constructions and connector types. We really want to try to keep it, short and as informative as possible, but mainly a summary or to introduce those that have not used fiber before and understand to enter the fiber category and why, use it as well. Later, I'll demonstrate how to terminate our fiber, and you'll see that we've made it very simple, safe, and easy to use. I will summarize some of the termination boxes and accessories that we use for the fiber, and also some examples of a couple of different applications where it is possible to consider the use of fiber. So let's talk about the types and difference of why they call multi-mode and single mode. So the first thing that comes to mind when talking about fiber is the ability to quickly transmit data over long distances. So multi-mode can transmit 100 gigs per second up to approximately 500 feet or 150 meters. So, and it also has 4 different categories, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Single mode fiber has theoretically infinite distance, and it can just travel, miles. And pretty much these are distances that copper, can't really transmit. Latency is becoming increasingly important in our industry. A lot of information is now transferred through, the IP network switch infrastructure. And, for that to happen successfully, we need data to move from one point to the other as instantly as possible. Fiber is different from copper. One of the reasons is that it has no metal components. So that means that it's immune to things like surges, EMI, electromagnetic interference, radio frequencies interference, and also even lightning. It also doesn't corrode. Our fiber is just as easy, or if not easier, to install than copper and other fibers out there. It's also becoming more affordable. To give an example of the typical, cost of what we would call a duplex fiber, the duplex is pretty much like a shotgun style. Each of the fibers has its own jacket. Normally, you connect it to like a network switch About 1,000 feet of the duplex is now comparable to a cost about 1,000 feet of Cat 6 or Cat 6A. Our fiber connectors are also affordable, and they can actually be reused. So you can use them from 3 to 5 times. Future technologies are not a challenge for us in the fiber category, and it's also light. So like 1,000 feet of Cat 6 shielded usually weighs about maybe 50 pounds. And depending on the size of the outer jacket of the fiber, depending on what it has, it could be about 14 pounds. So our fiber, it's easier to lift and it'll take less space also. So these are the two types you're going to find in the industry. So single mode, not to be confused with a single fiber, and multi-mode with multiple fibers. So single mode can have multiple fibers in there. So just like multi-mode. So the single mode fiber is 9 micron in diameter, protected by 125 micron glass coating, or a kind of mirror around it. This is the same for any fiber optic cable, not just ours. So yeah, you may have multiple fibers in one jacket when it comes down to single mode also. So multi-mode has a core of 50 microns instead of the 9, but you can't really, by looking at it, you can't really tell because it's too small. So pretty much you would have to, read the label on the jacket itself to determine it also. So multi-mode has several lights, but they don't get to the end at the same time because they're covering a different distance. So that causes a modal dispersion, which means that multi-mode has a limited distance. So multi-mode fiber is generally used for shorter distances and single mode used for longer distances. But that doesn't mean that single mode cannot be for shorter distances also. It can be, but usually for shorter, multi-mode would be the way to go just because the core is bigger, and single mode is more for like the longer distances. So here, the core is the optical core, is a light carrying element in the center of the fiber, and it is made up by ultra pure optical glass in a high temperature process. There's a 9 or a 50 micron core. So then you have the cladding, which the coating is made up of 125 microns of pure silica, and it creates a kind of refractive barrier that causes the light to bounce through the core instead of going outside. Then you have the coating, so it goes above the core and the cladding. There's 250 micron acrylite, and then also a 900 micron buffer tube to prevent from physical damage and protect the fiber from moisture. So the acrylite and the buffer are removed when terminating. Then you have the Kevlar, which is the yarn. It's used for stress relief on the back of the connector and for pulling the cable. So always use the Kevlar to pull. Never use the jacket, because if you pull by the jacket, it will stretch. All the strength is in the Kevlar. You can even put up to 225 pounds pulling on that, and you won't damage it. And then you have the outer jacket. So there's different, several layers with traditional fiber. You have to strip each of them back, then you use the Kevlar to pull the fiber, and then you have to remove the outer jacket, you have to remove the acrylite, stripping it, you have to cleave it at a specific length depending on the connector. The cladding has to be cleaned with a special alcohol wipes. You have to be very careful not to poke yourself when you get down to all those layers, especially to the cladding. Then the core and the cladding is the size of a hair, so it's like if you poke yourself, it's going to be like a splinter of glass, and that glass can pretty much break in your hand and stay there and cause problems. So you got to be very careful when doing traditional fiber. So fiber optics are not only very fragile, but it also takes a long time to prepare, and it can be potentially dangerous if you're not certified on how to handle it. and that's with traditional fiber. So now let's talk about how we've, overcome all these problems. So Cleerline SSF means stronger, safer, and faster. We still have a 9 or a 50 micron diameter glass core. So we still have a cladding around the core, but we actually reduced the cladding and we build it up with an SSF polymer that we call it, stronger, safer, and faster polymer. So our overall size under the acrylite is still 125 because we use that polymer and that cladding. So it is very important to remember that our fiber is compatible with others. So with other fibers or connectors or even tools. So you'll still be able to, mix, use our fiber or even our connectors. So let's say you already have a job out there and it has traditional fiber, you could use our connectors with it just because we have the same overall size. The difference is that our polymer protects our glass and it makes it very strong, safe, and easy to use. So never remove that polymer unless you're fusion splicing. That's the only reason you should remove it. Other than that, if you're not doing fusion splicing, just mechanical splicing, then leave that polymer on there. The 900 micron tube is there for the protection of the acrylite and the glass. So we don't need it because our protection is provided by our polymer. The 250 micron acrylite of the traditional fiber must be removed with fiber strippers, but our fiber underneath is strong enough that we could remove our acrylite with just our fingers or our nails. So we've reduced the number of tools you need. We've reduced the amount of training that you need to prepare the fiber. And we've also increased an element of safety and strength to fiber that doesn't require extensive training that you would normally need. So now I'm gonna show you how to terminate our fiber.
No, as Rosie sets this up, I'm pretty sure for those who are actually on the recording, looking at this either post or on YouTube, I'm pretty sure that the webcam actually is not cut off, and so for that I apologize. But there are really great videos that you can find either on our website, or rather our YouTube page, or Cleerline's YouTube page. And in doing so, you're going to be able to find the same, not as well explained. It's going to be a shorter version of it, but you're going to be able to see the exact same video with much of the same content on how to be able to terminate it. And one of the things that I love about it, when I first started working with fiber, because I've terminated this myself, it's very easy, is that I was first concerned that it was going to get stuck in my skin, and because it's so small, it was going to get stuck there and there's gonna be a problem. But because of that proprietary polymer that Rosie was talking about, it doesn't happen, right? Number one, it doesn't splinter. You can do a 90-degree bend in there. It's not gonna break or affect the quality of the cable, and it's very safe. So you can work with it. You can pull that cladding with your fingernail. It's really safe. It's really easy, and that's really awesome. So I see you're ready, Rosie, and so I'll let you go for it.
Okay. So here I want to show you also the size. So right here you'll have the Cleerline fiber, and here you have a traditional. These are 12 strands. So because of that polymer, we don't need that buffer tube, so that extra jacketing, and that's why ours is thinner. So ours is in a 3mm jacket, so you can definitely tell a difference. You can actually fit more in here, so that way you don't need a lot of room for it. And then we just have different applications that you'll be able to use, and I have a different slide for that where it goes by each one and depend which one goes with which. So with like our basic kit, you'll have the strippers. So with this strippers, I would definitely recommend this ones if you are fusion splicing. It'll also work with just mechanical because it still has the regular sizes for it, but we actually added an extra hole on there for our polymer. So if you're fusion splicing, By having this tool, it'll make it so much easier because you literally just put the fiber in, just do it about twice. It'll remove that polymer off it, and then you'll treat it like traditional fiber. And that's when fusion splicing. So it'll make it so much faster, so much easier to work with when having this tool also. So with our basic kit, you'll have strippers, you'll have your shears, you'll have a cleaver. So this cleaver is actually a wheel precision cleaver. That's the one you would need for our fiber. So with this one, pretty much we have to, this is SSF adjusted. So our cleaver, we have to adjust the height of it just because our fiber is so much stronger that if we have it regular, just pretty much if you're doing traditional fiber versus ours, we have to change the height because it won't cleave it. So that's why there's this one specifically for ours. But if you're doing traditional also, you could use this cleaver also. So you don't have to make any adjustments. We also comes with a little trash bin. It comes with the VFL. It may look a little bit different than this, but it's the same concept. So the VFL is very important to use. So this would determine if you have it connected to one end. On the other end, if you see the light coming out, then you know that there really isn't a break. If you don't see any light through it, then it's probably glowing in between the jacket. So this one is a great tool to determine, okay, if you see light on the other end, okay, perfect. You know that it's good. So always use it. And also it's good for when terminating it, when you're inserting the fiber in there. Once you see the light dim, and I'll show you, once you see the light dim, then you know that's when it's making a connection from the fiber that you're inserting in with the fiber within the connector. So once it meets, then the light will dim, and then that's when you have to lock it in. It also comes with an adapter, the VFL. So this is when you're doing LC, and you don't need an adapter if you're doing SC connectors. And also we have these one clicks. So these are to clean the tip of the connectors. So we have an SC and an LC style, and I'll show you the different styles of the connectors. But this one is good to, for instance, you don't know if you're actually touching it here or what could get on it. So I always recommend is using this one click, and also there's a different slide that actually tells you that shows you the actual picture of before, when you touch it and after it gets clean. So pretty much you leave this on, and this is an SC style connector, and pretty much it cleans it off here. And then just always make sure you have the dust cap on there. And if you already have it like in a rack, you have all these connections in the back and in the front, you want to clean all of those without having to disconnect all those connectors, you can just remove this and just literally punch into those adapters, and it'll just clean the connector also. With our passive connectors, it comes with instructions. So it'll tell you all the steps, at what length you need to cleave it as, where to keep the jacket at. And also another thing, when you're cleaving it, you want to make sure that the fiber is long enough to lay across both of the black pads. Because if it's too short, then this side is not going to grip it, and then the fiber is going to be moving. So that's important to realize how much to pretty much cut it off. So you always want to make sure that it's longer than this one, or at least where the fiber can sit on the second one. Also want to go over the fan out kit. So pretty much this is used when you're not using an enclosure. So let's say you're just hooking it up directly to the equipment. Then we do recommend getting this fan out kit, which is pretty much empty tubes that you just feed through the fibers, and it comes out through the ends, and then you can terminate it, and you can just plug it in directly. So the fiber is, really thin. So you still want to protect it, just because you don't know who else is going to be there in the equipment room trying to unplug and doing all that. So you obviously don't want him to, you know, damage or anything to the fiber. I also wanted to show the 8K AOC cables. So these are directional. So you'll have your display and your source. We also include a USB adapter. So sometimes the source doesn't provide enough power to power up the cable. So we just include this. So you can always just use this to be able to use it. And what we actually did is we added 4 strands of fiber inside. And then that way later on, let's say that you're not using HDMI anymore. You want to use like a converter and put like either an SC or an LC style connector and utilize the fiber, you're able to just cut off the ends, look for the fiber inside, and then terminate it there. So these go up to a 40 meter. So this would be good for, you know, future pretty much. Just you never know. You don't have to remove this cable or anything like that. You can just use it. All right. So how I was mentioning, our connectors are reusable. So this is an SC style connector. It's like a snap-on connector. So pretty much it just removes, snaps right in. We have an LC, which is, I call it like the little connector and like the standard connector. That's a good way also to remember it. So LC is a smaller one. With this one is mainly used for 99% of the time in SFP modules. So those SFPs modules that go in the switches, you'll normally utilize 2 of these, of the LCs. To remove the snap-on, so sometimes it'll just remove it right off, but sometimes it can also be hard to remove, and a quick way to also remove it, make sure you have the dust cap on. You can even press it down and it will remove it quickly also. So right now, let me remove the boot. So this is the little slide on tab. So this is what locks in the fiber. So right now I unlocked it, took out the fiber that was already in there. You still want to dispose of it. So what I like to do first is check that the sliding tab is towards the bottom of the connector. That means that it's open. Sometimes it could be maybe halfway or towards the top, and that doesn't allow the fiber to go in there. So always make sure that it's towards the bottom. Next thing, I like to actually put this in the VFL. And then that way I use the VFL as a handle, and then that way I can just use my thumb to lock it in. All right, so the first thing you want to do is put on the boot. So you'll use the first one, the first hole here, and do about maybe 2 inches there, take it off. So this is the Kevlar. So this is what you would use to pull the cable with. So you take about maybe 6 inches of the jacket, and then you'll use the Kevlar here, put it to, you know, your pulling string, and then just, you know, take the cable from here. So this is where all the strength is. So right now I'll just remove it to the side. So this is the soft peel. So this is like a color identifier where right now I have 1 fiber here, so it'll be blue. If there's multiple fibers, it's good to see this, because if you're, you know, you see blue here, then you know, okay, blue is on the other side. I know that's the same cable. So with this one, normally with traditional, you'll have to use the strippers and remove it. But with ours, we made it simpler where we just use the fingernails pretty much, and it'll start removing it there. You can kind of see it. So pretty much use your fingernails. Not too much pressure, because it will snap, because you still have a glass in there. So I just remove it. Also, for those of you who don't have fingernails, you could also use a credit card to help you get started by removing that. So now I have the actual polymer that I'm touching. So you never want to do this with traditional because that will stab you because it's just the actual glass, the bare glass. But with ours, because of the polymer, it makes it where it's so much stronger. I can even do this, won't stab myself. So that's the difference between, ours. So now each connector has its own length of where you need to cleave it as. So with this one, with the SE style, you have to get it at 28. So 28 would be down here. You want to make sure that the jacket is at 28 and that the fiber is long enough to lay across both of those black pads. And we also have videos on how to terminate, using different styles of the fiber, different jackets or LC connectors or SC connectors. And it'll go, step by step and everything also. So just lay it on there, make sure that the jacket is at 28, cleave it. You still want to dispose of the fiber. So now the connector has a little hinge, you can just lift it. So now I'll just put in the fiber. So right here is where you see it dim. That's when you know when to lock it. So make sure you keep constant pressure on it, and that way that it doesn't move. So make sure that it's constant in there. So once you push it in, make sure that the light dims. And once you do that, then you lock it in. You can put that down. Remove the Kevlar to one side. Make sure you put the dust cap on there. Do about 1 or 2 turns. Now you can remove the Kevlar. Keep twisting it. So with this one, you see how the little sliding tab is on the top? You want this one to be at the opposite. So you want this one facing down. So the little lines here go towards the bottom. And pretty much that's the whole termination for doing an SC. So with this one, you can do it even under a minute, just with this without, talking to, through it, and you can do it pretty quick. With also, let me show you the actual fiber itself here. So this is with the color identifier. So this is pretty much the fiber that's inside of the jacket, and I can pretty much put it in a knot. And so that's how you know how, resistant and how strong our fiber is. You can literally put it by itself in a knot. So it's pretty strong. So also with the pack of connectors, it comes with 3 different tubes. So you'll have your 250 tube, which the 250 is with a color identifier. So anytime you have like a single jacket with multiple strands, and let's say it's going into an enclosure where you don't really need a fan out kit, then you would use the clear one, the one that says 250. It comes with the instructions also. It's 2-sided, so once you flip over the instructions, it'll have it how to add the tube on there also. So pretty much the tube would it'll be sticking out of the connector a little bit towards the back of it. So for instance, here I had to use the black one, so you'll see how it's coming out just a little bit, but it sits inside. So I was saying the black one is used for the fan out kit. So you'll use this one, and then if you're doing, let's say, tactical fiber, that one is a 2 millimeter, so you'll use these yellow ones for the tactical. All right, did it go back to my screen? Okay. All right, so this is the next slide that I was talking about. So this one here. So this is the one where I'm using a microscope. On the left side is, you can even barely see the core. That's just by using your finger, by touching it. So right there, you're gonna have high loss. And by using the one-click cleaners, it'll actually clean it all off. So that's why it's very important to use those one-click cleaners to make sure that it's all, clean. That's very important. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the basic questions. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is there existing fiber in the project? If there is, you have to see what kind of fiber is in there. If it has a core of 9 or a 50 micron or even a 62.5. So a 62.5 is multi-mode fiber, but it's an older version. It would be OM1. If you have to use that fiber, you have to see the length of it to see if you're still able to use it also. And then you'll have to use, a media converter and also a specific type of connector. So you won't be able to use our connectors with it because we only take, so our multimode connectors would work with OM2, 3, and 4. And because the OM1 has a different size of core, it won't work with those. You could also, the number or the letters on the jacket could tell you if the cable is single mode or multi-mode. So if you see 9 by 125, SM, OS1, or OS2, that indicates that the cable is single mode. If you see that it says 50 by 125, multi-mode, OM2, 3, or 4, that indicates that the cable is multi-mode. There's also riser and plenum. So they're usually like an R or a P after, let's say OM3. So the riser is used for, indoors and residential homes. Plenum is used more for maybe commercial spaces or outside, in conduits for residential homes. Plenum just has that water blocking functions. So if you have a new project, then there's a couple, different questions to ask. How long is the distance that you need to cover? As I mentioned earlier, multi-mode is used for shorter distances and single mode is used for longer. If the distance is more than 1,000 feet or close to it, I'll definitely be looking at single mode. If the distance is less than 1,000, then you can do multi-mode. So single mode is actually less to manufacture than multi-mode. So the cable is cheaper, but the equipment could be a little bit more expensive than multi-mode. And then vice versa, multi-mode, the cable is actually more to manufacture, but the equipment is actually a little bit less. Then is there an existing equipment where the fiber is going to be connected? If so, you got to also determine, is it multi-mode, single mode, what type of connector it's using, either the LC or the SC. If you're connecting to like the SFP module and, with the switch, then you'll most likely be using the LCs, but, verify. Also, everything has to match. So the fiber, the connectors, and the equipment. So if you're doing multi-mode, everything has to be multi-mode. So you can't do, oh, okay, I only have single mode connectors, but I have multi-mode fiber. Let me use it together. You can't do that. Everything has to match. So pretty much these are the fundamental questions you'll need to know to reduce what type of fiber to use. So here I'll have OM1 and OM2. So this is the OM1 is the one that with 62.5. It's going to be orange or even sometimes even gray. And then this one is the outdated one. So we've moved from, to a new technology, which now it's a 50 micron glass, which OM2, 3, and 4, or even 5 has that 50 micron. So all those, if you want to use multi-mode, all those would be compatible. Also, you can think of this as a, difference between Cat 3, Cat 5, 6. So pretty much is the same. So everything is basically the same technology, but they have been able to improve some things within the construction of the glass itself and make it possible to take a little bit more bandwidth or even a greater distance. So OM3 is the cable to use most because it can carry like 10 gigs per second up to 1,000 feet, and that would be the Aqua. So normally if you're starting with multi-mode, you would start at like OM3. If you need a little bit more distance and it has to be multi-mode, then you can do the OM4. OM4 is generally, I've seen it used more within like the medical field. If you need to go beyond that, past what OM4, can do, then definitely, I would just do single mode, especially for the distances. So the constructions you need is really depends on the application and the equipment that you use. So on a single jacket, you can even put 144 strands in there. So here we have even a simplex, which now we pretty much start at the duplex because you'll need one for pretty much your send and receive. So you'll need two. So they are attached like a shotgun style. Each fiber has its own jacket. This is one of our best selling also, and it's because it's usually used for like the network switches. One for receiving, one for send. Also, we have the micro distribution cable. That's the one that can go up to like 144 strands. It can either be multi-mode or single mode on just one jacket. Pretty much our jacket is a 10.6 millimeter versus traditional, they need a 17 millimeter jacket on there. We have the breakout also. This one, each of those fibers has its own jacket, but we only make it in a 4-strand. So this is if you really, really want to secure it, but normally you don't, because of that polymer, you don't need it, but there are customers out there, they're like, no, I'm so used to traditional fiber that they want to see that, that extra jacket on there. So we have it in a 4-strand. Then we have the rugged micro, which this is another popular one. This one's for building to building construction, in conduits. The cable is, rodent resistant, UV resistant, and it can also sit in water. But then we have our ACS. It's used for direct burial. It has protection against physical impacts and rodents. Then we have the AIA. It's a product seen in commercial spaces such as like warehouses or parking decks. So pretty much it's indoor and it has the armor. Then we have our tactical, has several fibers in each of those subunits, and the outer jacket is rubber. It's like a microphone cable. It's ideal for temporary rental applications or like live events, staging somewhere where it's just temporary, where you can just move it around. So this tactical will be the way to go. Then we have even fiber to power. So we have two fibers and then two 18-2 gauge wire there. We also have the bundled fiber where we do have two OM3 and then two Cat 6 cables on a single jacket. And then we can just do any any construction. We can do custom. So depending on how the length of it also. So the connectors here. So how I was showing. These are the main two that you'll see. So we have the LC, how I mentioned, like the little connector, and the SC as like the standard connector. So with this one's, how I was saying, LC is used more for like the SFP modules. The SC can be also for like fiber extenders or HDMI extenders. But there are some other, fiber extenders where it also takes the LC. So always check your equipment. So once you determine the type of connector you'll need to determine, okay, do I need single mode, multi-mode? The connectors are also color coded. So the multi-mode would be the aqua color, and then the single mode would be the blue The only exception is that if you're in a residential application where the service provider installs the fiber to the home, they'll probably bring in a single mode fiber with the green SC style connector. That is because their equipment takes that specific connector. So it just means that it's an angled polished connector, so APC. So normally that's where I've mainly seen, it's only with the service provider. Other than that, you'll use these blue ones for the equipment. So how I was saying, with the backup connectors, you'll have the instructions, the 3 different tubes, and how I was saying our fiber is compatible with the different connectors, or even vice versa. Our connectors, you know, we'll be able to use with somebody else's fiber. So here we have the link, total fiber link loss. So this is how I was talking about the dB loss. So pretty much you have to consider, you know, how much dB loss you are getting. Typically, mechanical connectors have a loss of 0.75 dB each. The Fiber Optic Association says that the total loss should be not more than 1.5 dB. So that's the 0.75 times 2, and that's for the 2 connectors. So our connectors, we have shown that we've designed it with a higher quality and has a max gel pretty much inside. And they can also be as low as a 0.2 per connector. So to find out your dB loss, you need to add everything up. So the connectors, the adapters, the total fiber distance. For example, like multi-mode has a 0.1 dB per 100 feet, or single mode has a 0.1 dB per 600 feet. So pretty much with multi-mode, especially with short distances, it allows you to have more loss, I guess, because you know, 0.1, it adds 0.1 per 100 feet. So here we have a network switch with an SFP module here. That could be either a 1 gig or a 10 gig. It can be single mode, it can be for multi-mode. Most SFP modules can take 2 LC connectors, which is part of the reason why we sell the duplex. So this exits the network switch, the SFP, to the fiber, then exits the fiber back into another SFP that converts the light back into electrons to a media converter, or even to another, can even be a switch also. So pretty much you can use this to like extend like from one house to another. You can use, you know, switches or SFPs, use the fiber within to be able to extend, you know, longer distances also, and make sure you get all that bandwidth. So here we have, you know, you connect the HDMI cable to the source, and then the fiber, you know, into the transmitter, then transmits, the transmitter converts the HDMI into fiber. The fiber optic on the other side enters the fiber receiver that converts it back into HDMI to connect to the display. There's also some sources and projectors that have a direct fiber port, but little, you know, there's going to be more equipment that's just going to have a direct fiber port. So here we now offer, you know, different accessories, cables that you need for the installation. As I mentioned, you know, if you're doing any kind of testing, so it is important to measure the dB loss on your cables. You should always have the 1 clicks to make sure that it's clean, because it pretty much, if you're just testing it and not cleaning it, then it pretty much, you're not getting the actual reading that you pretty much need, because you're not cleaning it, you're not doing all the steps. So you just want to make sure that there's no dirt on it or anything on there. So I was saying, you know, with the AOC cables, we have they're 48 gigs, 4 out of the 19. So there's 4 fibers, 19 conductors in there. And that's just so it can power up the cable itself, because fiber, it doesn't power. So pretty much it transmits 48 gigs per second, giving that HDMI 2.1 ready. You can transfer up to the 40 meters, you know, and be able to cut off the ends and be able to do utilize the fiber within and do, LC or SC style connectors. So it is not limited to, current generation of technology, and you can also use it for, future generation also. So here we have the enclosures. So they come empty, and it's because we have different adapters to go with it. You may need LC, you may need SC, multi-mode or single mode, depending on how many fibers you need. So you pretty much just grab the enclosure and you put in the adapter that you actually need, depending on what, connectors and everything that you're using. So the top three are compatible. So you would be able to use that rack enclosure and that wall enclosure with that adapter there. And then if you're doing the indoor terminal boxes, which goes usually like behind a TV, it's really small, or even the outdoor terminal boxes, you would use the middle adapter there for those. So here, it's like we're starting. Okay, do you need multi-mode? Do you need single mode? Then you gotta ask, okay, what type of cable, where is this gonna go through? Is there a conduit? Then what type of equipment I'm using to determine what connector. If you're using an enclosure, then you don't really need a fan out kit. If you're going directly to the actual equipment, then yes, I would recommend using a fan out kit. Then we have the different tools, where the basic kit, that's the one that I've shown. Then we have the 3P kit, which that's the one that if you're also do terminations for like traditional fiber, this one would also work for both. It just comes with extra tools and also some wipes, and some alcohol, so you'll be able to clean the traditional fiber. We also have two testers. This will check the dB loss you're getting. So the 100 tester would just display it, how much dB loss you're getting. And the 400 tester would you can actually plug in your laptop and, print out the results. So those are the difference between those ones. So these are the different options that are available. So this is to reference, to help you understand what type of construction are available and what type of application it can be used. We also came out with our hybrid cable. So we have one where it's usually used at the DMART. So there's two single mode cables. One is traditional and one is our fiber. So that way, whoever's terminating it, they won't have an issue. So let's say they're, they've used to traditional fiber, then they can just terminate that one leg. Or if they know how to do Cleerline, then they can terminate, the SSF strand on there. All right, and that's it. Is there any questions, concerns?
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, there was a question. I think you kind of covered it, but just to be able to make sure and over analyze the point. What would happen if you were to use, for instance, a multi-mode cable, but you were using a single mode SFP connector or vice versa? Would something break? Would it just not work? What would happen in that case?
It wouldn't work. Just because the core is different, it won't be compatible. So you're trying to shoot all that light, but if it's trying to shoot it, to a smaller core, it's not really gonna, allow it to work properly. So it's just always recommended to do everything, make it compatible.
The actual LC and SC connectors, where it's connecting into the SFP device, it's a different size, right? So it probably wouldn't even fit, would it? Or am I wrong there?
Well, yeah, that would be one of the reasons why you got to make sure which connector. So that's why check always the device. It'll tell you, okay, I need LC connectors or I need SC connectors, but also make sure that it's compatible. Because let's say you have the right connector, you have an LC, but it's for multi-mode and you have a single mode connector, then it won't be compatible. So you have to make sure of that also. So you want to make sure everything is compatible in order for it to work. And also on another thing on the SFP modules, so how it has two strands, how it has a blue and an orange. Let's say on one side you start with blue on the left and you have your orange strand on the right. On the other side, you have to remember to reverse it. So let's say you started with the blue on the left, make sure on the other side you start with the orange, because your SFP module, your left one works as a transmitter, your right works out as a receiver. So you don't want to go transmit to transmit, because then you're not going to be receiving. So that's another thing with the SFP modules when doing the patch cables.
Right, absolutely. And again, while Cleerline is absolutely fundamentally important to audio video export as one of our promoted brands, they obviously, just like any other cable, they don't work on an island. So whether that be that you're using an extender device, so you're extending HDMI over fiber, or whether you're extending a network using Luxel, you know, we want to be the one-stop shop for all of our customers, so you can get as much, if not everything, from us as possible. So if you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We're here at your service for it.